Like, I mean, as a VC and as an investor, I want to talk about that as well because you've been doing that. So, what is your exit strategy, and like, what exactly do you look at when you, or like, first is like, what exactly do you look at when you're investing? Second is, when do you know when to exit? These two things.
Right. So I cannot talk about the exit part because I left my VC job in 6 months, so I did not do any exit as such. But I can talk about the investing part where,
Mhm.
oh, by the way, I have the same bottle, the LinkedIn one.
Exactly.
I don't
Yeah,
know if it's
I
visible or not.
noticed
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So basically, about the investing one, I can talk about that. So basically,
Uh-huh.
whenever you invest in a startup, there are like multiple things which you have to look for. The first and the most important thing is the founder.
Uh-huh.
How frugal is the founder in terms of achieving something or in terms of tackling the challenges, etc. Any
Mhm.
VC would bet on the founder and then the product because they know that if the product also doesn't scale or survive, the founder has, or maybe he'll do some jugaad in order to just scale the product, or he'll just pivot the business model.
Exactly.
So I
Hmm.
think that's one. Number two is that you look how big is the market and what market share can this company ideally capture in the near
Hmm.
future, in 2 years, 3 years down the line. That's
Hmm.
that's an important part. Then number three is the competition in the space. So for
Hmm.
example, how many people, how many companies are already there in this space?
Hmm.
Which is the leading company? How
Yeah.
are you different from your competitors? Is there anything, or is there any moat which your company has which other companies don't?
Hmm.
So for example, even if I'm building something today,
Yeah.
I need to know the answers of these questions, that what is something that my company will have which other companies won't? Like if someone copies or
Hmm.
replicates, what is it that the other company won't survive or succeed than you? Because there are a lot of
Yeah.
competitors who will just copy your product and can survive and can
Exactly.
defeat you after a point of
Yeah.
time. So that's
Yeah.
also quite important.
Hmm.
And then apart from that, you also check about the monetization aspect in terms of how is it monetizing, what are the
Hmm.
revenues, what is the multiple where you're investing, what is the industry multiple. By multiple, what I mean is that there's always a valuation multiple assigned to all the startups. So it's
Okay.
usually revenue based because startups are
Uh-huh.
not profitable initially, they are loss making. And that's why we check the multiple of the revenue. If it is 5x, 10x, 15x,
Hmm.
20x, depends on
Yeah.
which industry you're in. If
Yeah.
you're in a tech industry, the ideal multiple should be 20x of your revenue. So your valuation
Okay.
should be anywhere between 15 to 20x of what your revenue is, the
Hmm.
annual recurring revenue.
Yeah.
So you have to check these multiples and all. And last thing I think, which is very important, is the fundraise plan. If a startup has come for fundraise, right? So
Hmm.
you have to ask like, what is your allocation? Why are you using? Why are you like raising funds? How are you
Hmm.
going to leverage them? How are you going to deploy them after a point of time?
Hmm.
So you have to
Right.
understand the founder should have a concrete plan in terms of what is the allocation of all the funds, like employment, tech building, hiring, operations, logistics, etc.
Hmm.
And yeah, after all this, then once you do your due diligence, then you take a bet if you want to invest in this company or not. But
Got it.
mostly the bets would be founder related. If the founder is really, really good and if he has like amazing knowledge about the industry and all, then I
Hmm.
think that's like a very green flag for any VC to invest in a founder.
Makes sense. And how long does this process take? Like, because I've spoken to a few people, they say it takes about like 6 months, right? Like the whole process. While we see on Shark Tank and everything within 10 minutes, they just say, yeah, I'm gonna invest in you. So how, like, I mean, how long does it take usually, like at least for you when you've been there, when you've
I think
experienced?
1.5 months from the first
Uh,
call to signing the term sheet. One and
okay.
a half months is an ideal time where you also have to do the due diligence. Then there's an investment committee meeting, IC meeting,
Hmm.
which is there. And in the IC meet, once it is approved, you sign the term sheet, and then money in the bank happens anywhere between 1 month after the term sheet is signed. Once all the
Hmm.
formalities are done, signing the SHAs, the shareholder agreement, the share subscription agreement, etc.
Hmm.
I think the overall period of transferring, like from introductory call to transferring money in the bank, would be around 2.5 months, is
Hmm.
what my guess is. But
Hmm.
from the time of introduction call to at least signing the term sheet, that should be around 1.5 months.
Got it. Okay. Okay, now let's talk about the creator economy and like the businesses and everything that's happening in India, especially. So, how is the creator economy in India like different from creator economy and like the businesses that are there in other countries, especially like say talk about the US? Like, what do you think is different in India and like how are we evolving? What are your thoughts on that?
Brilliant question. First point is that in US, creators are able to monetize much better. Plus, the paying capacity of the brands, etc., is much higher as compared to
Mhm.
India. The
Yeah.
cost per the CPM and RPM, cost per
Mhm.
thousand impression and revenue per thousand impression, it's
Mhm.
almost 5 to 6x of what is the CPM and RPM in India. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two is that creators in US get almost 40 to 50% of their revenue from Google AdSense, which is the YouTube Google AdSense income which they get. In
Yeah.
India, hardly, even if considering my example of any example, if you consider in India, not more than 5 to 10% of any creator's income would come through Google AdSense.
Okay.
So mostly the income in India comes through influencer marketing, which is brand deals.
Brand
And it's a
collabs.
$200 million industry in India right now, 1500 crore ka hai, but it is expected to grow at a rapid scale in the future. And my thesis is that brands will spend more on influencer marketing than performance marketing in order to generate their sales and leads after a point of time and leverage the audience of the influencers, the loyal audience. That's number two. Number three, the mindset of creators in US is much different than the mindset of creators in India. By that, what I mean is that companies like Creative Juice, companies like Carrot, Spotify, not Spotify, companies like Jelly Smack, companies like Spotter. These are four companies which are doing very well in USA, by the way. So the model of Creative Juice and Carrot is that they give loans to creators. So Carrot is like a fintech in the creator economy where it'll give loans to creators and all. So creators in US are very much adaptive and they are very much happy to take loans, etc. And they also need capital in order to grow as a person, and that's going in the US. So if you give capital to creators in US, they'll be more happy. But in India, everyone is like in India, the creators are reluctant to take initial bet of capital because they think that either someone will control me or I will just lose out or I'll dilute some or the other point of time. There'll be some supervision or there'll be someone who's monitoring me all the time. So that's the mindset which is different, and therefore companies who are just adopting sport like models like Spotter, etc., they are like struggling in India in order to just scale after a point of time because the creator's mindset is very different from what the mindset is there in US. That's the third difference. And apart from that, I think the fourth difference would be the subscription-based model and the AI ML. So in US, companies like Jasper.ai, which recently became a unicorn, $1.8 billion, they just raised their Series A. Those companies are flying off because in US, people are willing to subscribe for these kind of products, like even brands, even creators, etc. But subscription-based model in India, usually it's like, like people share their IDs and passwords. Like, आज मैं अगर YouTube Premium लूँगा, so I'll share their ID password with 5 of my friends and I'll divide that cost by 5. That's the jugaad which we are doing in India. And that's why subscription-based model work well in the US because of the higher paying capacity as compared to India. And that's the reason why companies like Substack, companies like Jasper, companies like any other company which is a subscription-based model, they are working well in US as compared to India. So yeah, these would be my 4 pointers.
Then, so you mentioned about, say, how brands will start investing more on influencer marketing rather than paid ads and everything. Do you think that's going to be the case even with the way the climate is right now with respect to recession and everything that's happening and people getting laid off? How is the creator economy or like the spends and everything going to change in India, like in the coming few months or say year also?
I think see, what the point is that every brand has a marketing budget which is allocated to them, right? So the question for them to answer is that they have to spend on marketing in order to acquire customers. The question is whether you spend on performance marketing or influencer marketing is a question which they need to answer in order to acquire the customers. Now, like the customer acquisition cost, at least with all the brands I have interacted and worked with, they always tell me that the CAC is much lesser for them when they do influencer marketing as compared to performance marketing. And that's why they are preferring to spend more on influencers in order to acquire customers because they have a loyal audience. So I feel even if like the funding winter is going around and it might last for some few months as well, even if it lasts for some few months, I still think that brands wouldn't be reluctant to spend on influencers as far as they are getting returns from that influencer. Because after a point of time, they need to calculate their return on ad spend, right? So if they're spending 1 rupee, they need to generate sales of at least 2 rupees, 3 rupees, 4 rupees, etc. That is the ideal return on ad spend which a brand should expect. So if they're paying me 50,000 or maybe 1 lakh rupees for a reel or for the YouTube integrated video, their sales should increase by 3 lakhs or 4 lakh rupees. That's when they'll be able to justify their spend. So that is happening in the industry, and that's why I feel that even if there's a funding winter, even if there's anything, as far as the influencers are able to help brands get their customers and leverage their audience, I think the spends wouldn't go down. In fact, my bet is that this $200 million industry of influencer marketing in India, this will definitely hit $1 billion in the next 4 to 5 years for sure.
Wow. Okay.
So that's my bet. And a lot of people have said this, by the way, and they're also quite bullish on influencer marketing. And yeah, 1,500 crores abhi pura spend kiya, like sub brands ne mila ke on influencers in India. So ye 1,500 crore ka, I don't see any reason not to go beyond 8,000 crores in the next 4 or 5 years.
Makes sense. And even during this like this period also, do you think the spends will be as high? Like I mean with recession and everything, or do you think like there'll be like thoda sa dip abhi, of course, because of
No, so I'll tell you, spends वगैरह जो है ना, like I think
uh,
spends and all, they'll remain constant, but the selection of creators might differ. So, for example,
mhm.
a leading creator in finance space, he'll get a lot of brand deals, and a
Yeah.
lot of brands would be willing to pay him some amount of money as compared to other creator who doesn't have the reach and engagement. So I feel that the spends wouldn't go down as such. The
Okay.
creator who's getting a lot of engagement and has a loyal audience, that creator will always win the game, and that
Hmm.
creator will always help the brands in order to acquire future customers.
Makes
So
sense.
spends, I don't think they'll go down significantly, but
Okay.
in fact, I just think that the allocation of creators would depend upon what
Yeah.
kind of engagement they're having.
Yeah. I think that will be much more selective now. Right?
Yeah.
So, okay, if there's one space, there's one area in this creator economy that you would bet on that is going to grow, especially in India, what would it be and why?
So like one area, as in like
Like
what
as
kind of
in
area?
you mentioned, like subscription models and like these things are something that will not work in India. Like I mean, at least not as much as in the US. What will work? Like, what do you think? How can creators monetize? Like, is there some other space or is there some other company or like some other model that would work in India? Like, what do you think?
Got it. I think in creator economy specifically, monetization is a big challenge for creators. If you're
Mhm.
able to solve for that, there are a lot of companies doing it. Companies
Yeah.
like Rigi, companies like Kuhu, companies like
Mhm.
Cosmofeed, Tag Mango, etc., who are able to
Mhm.
help creators monetize. If you're solving for that problem of monetization of creators, then I think you can really be like you can win the game, because that's the biggest problem in the creator economy, and having that
Mhm.
certain source of income. So if you're helping creators having that certain source of income,
Mhm.
then definitely that's a big value add. That is
Mhm.
number one. And number two, which I really feel is like automation of this content repurposing and automation using AI and ML. So
Mhm.
in fact, even I was thinking of this business idea that
Yeah.
build, building an AI ML tool which will automatically reply to all your comments, then building an AI ML tool which will automatically repurpose your content.
Okay.
So for example, if you are uploading an Instagram reel,
Yeah.
automatically that should, let's say, get uploaded on all the different social media handles. And
Mhm.
you don't have to just like manually do and go on every social media handle to
Yeah.
upload
Probably
it, because
convert that
that
reel into a script. I mean, like, and make it a
correct.
LinkedIn post later.
Correct. So
Yeah.
basically, what is happening for me even and for a lot of creators is that the biggest problem is that
Mm.
you have to be very manual. Like for example,
Yeah.
मैंने reel डाल दिया, उसके बाद मेरे को automatically story डालना पड़ता है, मेरे को सब comments को manually reply करना पड़ता है,
Mm.
Instagram का caption लेके मेरे को वो LinkedIn post में लिखना पड़ता है, वही उसका
Mm.
Twitter thread बनाना पड़ता है. So
Mm.
content repurposing is happening at a very wide scale. None of the
Yeah.
creators want to stay on one platform because they know अगर TikTok ban हो गया तो कोई भी platform ban हो सकता है.
हाँ.
अगर ban हो गया then I'm just dead. I'm just screwed up.
Yeah.
So basically, they are trying to diversify their audience base on all the social media, and that's why I also ensured कि मैं
Mhm.
YouTube पे भी हूँ, Instagram पे भी हूँ, LinkedIn पे भी हूँ, and I didn't
हाँ.
focus only on one social media platform. So
Yeah.
every creator now wants to grow on all the social media platforms in order to not have that fear of like one media platform being banned. And
हाँ.
that's why like content repurposing is a very big game according to me.
Yeah.
Even if you're an like there are so many agencies which are helping creators to repurpose their content. So I
Yeah.
was just approached by one of the agencies, and
Mhm.
they offered me that we'll just repurpose your content. So they are doing it by manual intervention. They have
Yeah.
hired some people. All the
हाँ.
people will go through my YouTube videos. They'll ensure कि okay best tweets इसको डाल सकते हैं. They'll
हाँ.
go through my LinkedIn post, and they'll say कि आप Instagram के reel ऐसे बना सकते हो. They'll
Mhm.
go through my Instagram reels and create a LinkedIn post for me.
Mhm.
So they are
Mhm.
doing this repurposing, and that's working very well. So I've started working with them from 1st of November, 4 days back, and
So is
I
this like
really like the product.
an influencer this thing
No,
management
it's not an
company
influencer
or it's
marketing
just content?
agency. It's just a content repurposing agency. That's
Got
it.
it.
I
Got
mean,
it.
their niche is content repurposing, and I'm just
Got it.
loving the way they're working.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very services based business as of now. But if that guy or if that company can just use some tech after a point of time,
Uh-huh.
maybe